I'm going to explain a sci-fi show called The Gifted. The show is set in the Marvel Universe where mutants with extraordinary abilities coexist with humans. However, these mutants are frequently punished harshly if they use their abilities, particularly in public. One evening we see a mutant woman named Clarice running away from a prison in Atlanta. Several police cars pursue her and eventually trap her in a dead-end street. In a desperate move, Clarice uses her powers to create a pink and blue portal. She quickly jumps up to the other side before the cops can catch up, bringing the chase to an end. Elsewhere we see three other mutants nearby, which include John, Marcus, and his girlfriend Lorna. John, who has powers of foresight and enhanced senses, figures out that a mutant woman is hiding nearby and is in danger. They decide to approach her and eventually find Clarice hiding in an office of an old building. She isn't happy to see them, but the trio clarifies that they're with the mutant underground and have come to help. Their conversation is cut short when a police squad arrives and surrounds the building. They begin firing a barrage of bullets, so Lorna uses her magnetism powers to ram the patrol cars into one another. At the same time, Marcus uses his ability to manipulate lights to blind the officers. The mutants then attempt to flee, but Marcus is unfortunately shot in the shoulder. Lorna is also restrained, and this prompts the other mutants to make a desperate escape. The next morning we see a married couple, Reed and Caitlin Strucker, in a meeting with their son's school principal. The couple reveals that their son Andy has been constantly bullied by fellow students. The principal agrees to address the matter, but Reed isn't fully convinced. He warns that if the bullying continues, he will be forced to sue the school. That type of douchebag behavior is likely why his son is being bullied. Afterward, Reed heads to work and we learn that he is a prosecutor. He approaches an imprisoned Lorna and offers her a reduced sentence in exchange for information about the mutants hiding in the city. She refuses to cooperate and begins torturing him using her powers. But then Reed takes out a file and shows Lorna something, causing her expression to suddenly change. She appears scared and Reed advises her to carefully consider her situation before leaving. That night we see Andy and his older sister Lauren leaving for a dance party in the school gymnasium. As soon as they arrive, Lauren gets busy having fun with her boyfriend. This leaves Andy alone and he's soon spotted by his boys. They drag him to the bathroom and accuse him of complaining about them to the principal. The poor boy denies it, but they start tormenting him by dousing him in hot water. This prompts Andy to scream in pain. "Hey, let's room camp!" And something really weird happens. His scream causes the rafters to shake and the gymnasium eventually collapses. In the aftermath, the students begin running away in panic. Lauren, however, refuses to leave without her brother and rushes to the bathroom. The building is now on the verge of collapsing, but Lauren uses her force field power to form a barrier, revealing that she is also a mutant. She eventually manages to find her brother and runs away from the school. Later, at home, the siblings inform their mother about everything that happened and reveal that they are both mutants. This leaves Caitlin shocked and conflicted, as their father's job involves hunting mutants like them. At this moment, several officers show up at the house to detain the siblings. Caitlin refuses to allow them inside, but the officers push her and force their way in. This leaves Lauren and Andy with no choice but to use their powers. They successfully fight off the cops and the family manages to drive away in a car. After some time, Caitlin calls her husband and informs them about their children's secret. He soon meets them at a cafe and is stunned by this new information. After careful consideration, Reed assures them that his family is his first priority and he won't abandon them. He suggests that they flee to a country with fewer restrictions on mutants, such as Mexico. The family then checks into a nearby motel and decides to hide out for the time being. The next morning, Reed uses his contacts and manages to gather information about the underground mutant group. He gets Marcus's number and gives him a call. Reed explains that his kids are mutants and that he needs help getting them across the border. He also reveals that he is prosecuting Lorna but can help her escape. Upon hearing all of this, Marcus initially refuses as he thinks it's some sort of trap, but when Reed discloses that Lorna is pregnant, he is left stunned. He eventually agrees to help the family and gives Reed a location to meet. After some sometime, Marcus and Reed meet up at a bar to discuss the conditions. Marcus claims that he will get the family to safety, but Reed must stay with him until they help Lorna escape. That night, the Strucker family meets Marcus at a warehouse, and he promises to help them cross the border. But suddenly, the group is surrounded from all sides by several officers. The mutants use all their powers to fight back, but the officers are equipped with special weapons and overpower them. Just when all hope seems to be lost, Clarice and John show up to help. She quickly uses her power to create a portal, and the group passes through it one at a time. Everyone jumps and lands safely inside the mutant underground headquarters. But when it's Reed's turn to go through, Clarice becomes too exhausted and collapses to the ground. The portal also closes, leaving Reed on the other side to be apprehended by the officers. Elsewhere, we see Lorna being transferred to a county jail, where she is met with hostility by the other inmates. There's an electric collar around her neck, which delivers a severe shock whenever she tries to use her powers. Returning to Mutant HQ, the Strucker family is concerned about Reed's well-being, but Marcus promises that he'll find them, as he also needs to help get Lorna out. Meanwhile, Clarice's condition deteriorates, and Caitlin suggests that she needs a doctor, but the other mutants argue that she's wanted by the authorities and they can't take her to the hospital. To make matters worse, an unconscious Clarice starts randomly opening a portal to a faraway country road. This freaks out the mutants, as they can't risk revealing their location to the civilians. Fortunately, Lauren takes charge and closes the portal with her force field. Caitlin then reveals that she is a former nurse and can help stabilize Clarice's condition. However, she will need the appropriate medication, which is only available in hospitals. She and Marcus then set out on the road to find it, while everyone else tries to keep Clarice's fits under control. Elsewhere, we see Reed detained in a prison, where an officer named Jace Turner interrogates him. The officer tries to manipulate Reed into betraying the mutants, but the latter refuses. He instead appeals to his rights and demands a lawyer, but the officer warns him that the situation has escalated beyond the law. Meanwhile, Marcus and Caitlin arrive at a hospital, and she reveals that the medication they need is in the emergency room. Since they can't go in there without a proper reason, they expose Marcus's bullet wound on his shoulder. They then quickly head inside, pretending to be a couple. Afterward, a doctor stitches up his wound and speaks with Caitlin privately. He notices some bruises on her head and inquires if it is a case of domestic violence. No, just police brutality. But Caitlin dismisses his concerns and claims it's just an accident. After the doctor leaves, she disguises herself as a nurse and steals the necessary medications. Meanwhile, at Mutant HQ, Clarice's condition begins to worsen and she starts creating portals more frequently of the same place. The mutants see several cops on the other side, and Lauren manages to close the portal with great difficulty. However, John senses that the cops are calling in a SWAT team and they won't be so lucky the next time. With no other option, the group decides to evacuate and begins to exit the building. Clarice's portals continue to wreak havoc and tear the place apart, but before things can turn catastrophic, Caitlin arrives and administers the medication to Clarice. This finally stabilizes her condition, and she returns to normal. In another scene, Jace meets with Reed again and shows him footage of cops interrogating his mother. An enraged Reed says that his mom has nothing to do with this, but Jace doesn't care and threatens to charge his entire family with terrorism. In the end, Reed gives up and finally agrees to cooperate, but he has one condition: he will lead the cops to Mutant HQ as long as they leave his family alone. Jace gladly agrees to the deal and informs Reed that he made the right choice. Elsewhere, the mutant group begins discussing how to get Lorna out of prison. Clarice is their best option, as she's the only one with teleportation powers. Marcus thus suggests that John train her, just as he trained other mutants in the past. Later, John speaks with Clarice, who reveals that she has been unable to use her powers since her recovery. She also explains that her abilities are triggered by strong emotions like fear or love. Just show her the butthole cut of the movie Cats. That will do it. A woman named Sonia observes their conversation and later speaks with John privately. She is a mutant with the ability to alter or implant memories in others' minds. Sonia suggests planting a memory in Clarice's mind to make her believe she and Lorna were best friends, which would motivate her. However, John refuses, knowing that such an action could have severe long-term consequences. Later that night, Caitlin wakes up her children and informs them that she is sneaking out to meet her Uncle Danny for help. The kids are against this idea, but they don't want to let her go alone, so they offer to accompany her and protect her in case she is attacked. The next day, John starts training Clarice and instructs her to concentrate on something meaningful meaningful and important to her. However, he soon senses that Caitlin and the kids escaped last night and becomes worried. John quickly informs Marcus of the situation, warning that if the family is caught, they may be forced to reveal the mutant HQ's location. The two men are frustrated by Caitlin's stupidity and set out to save the city before the cops reach them. Meanwhile, Caitlin and her kids arrive at her brother Danny's house, where the siblings exchange an emotional hug. He invites them inside, and Caitlin begs him to use his connections to get Reed released from prison. However, Danny refuses, claiming that since the news broke, all influential people have cut ties with him. He states that his own family is at risk and that he does not want to go to jail. Danny allows them to stay one night and offers them all of the money from his safe, but that is the best he can do right now. It's pretty good. In another scene, Jace attaches an ankle transmitter to Reed and frees him to carry out a sting operation. The transmitter will trace his location, and he won't be able to get rid of it unless he cuts off his leg. Afterward, Reed heads to the bar from earlier and approaches the bartender, who is also a mutant. He claims that he escaped from prison and begs the bartender to take him to Marcus so that he can find his family. The bartender is suspicious at first, but eventually agrees to take him to the drop-off location where the mutants will find him. In the meantime, he takes Reed to a back room where an innocent mutant mother and her daughter are already waiting. The mother takes away Reed's pain from his wound and reveals that they are also going to Mutant HQ tonight. Later that evening, the bartender drives the mother and daughter, as well as Reed, to the drop-off location. Reed has a dead serious face throughout the journey, so the little girl assures him that everything will be fine. She claims that they're heading to a safe place where the bad guys won't find them. Upon hearing her innocent words, Reed is struck with immense guilt, and he immediately asks the vehicle to be stopped as the police are following them. The bartender is shocked by this information but says that he can't stop the vehicle. Hence, Reed opens the door and simply jumps out. The bartender then uses his powers to make the vehicle vanish, allowing them to flee from the cops. Soon after, Jace approaches Reed, who is lying on the ground, and informs him that he has lost his only chance to see his family. The next day, Caitlin continues to plead with her brother, but he refuses to change his mind. During this tense moment, Marcus and John arrive at the house and insist that Caitlin and the kids come with them. Daniel is shocked to see them and demands to know who they are, but they are interrupted by outside noises which reveal that a group of neighboring men have gathered. They have learned of Caitlin's arrival and demand to see the mutant kids, who have a $300,000 bounty on their heads. Danny immediately heads out and tries to make the men leave. He claims that no one is inside and that he's all alone. However, the men strike Danny in the face and rush towards the house. This makes Andy very angry, so he uses his powers to break open the door. He now wants to fight them, but John and Marcus stop him from doing so. They instead get in a car and attempts to flee, but the mob of angry men begin chasing them. A desperate John then contacts Sonia and informs her of the gravity of the situation. Following this, Sonia approaches Clarice and requests her to create a portal, but the latter is unable to do so. When nothing else works, Sonia implants false memories of Clarice and John kissing and falling in love. It's a powerful memory, and now Clarice has something to care about. Sonia reveals that John is in danger, so a worried Clarice follows her to the middle of an open road. She then opens a portal big enough for a car, allowing the mutant group to safely escape the mob. In the aftermath of this incident, Clarice hugs John with affection, expressing how relieved she is to find him safe. This perplexes John, and he speaks with Sonia privately, asking what is going on. Sonia reveals that she gave Clarice the memories of what happened between them in the past. We then learn Sonia and John have feelings for each other, but decided not to date for the sake of their mission. John is stunned to realize that those memories are now planted in Clarice, and he knows it won't end well.